Hey, what's up, guys? JB here. So the day has finally come here in War of the Visions, something that had been teased months ago, when the collaboration was first announced, but Addison Rae has joined us here in War of the Visions as a playable unit here today. Now, I know for the core community of the game, this has been somewhat of a divisive topic. As far as where I land on it personally, I honestly had never even heard of Addison Rae, until this collaboration was announced, some months ago. But I did kind of go through all of that before, with FFB a couple of times, actually, where they had a couple people from pop culture that were infused into that game. So to be honest, it really doesn't bother me, at all. From a lore and story perspective, it definitely is a little bit jarring, I would say, but at the same time, when we have the likes of Nier Automata, Persona, and Full Metal Alchemist, already as visions within the game, it really doesn't break the immersion for me any further than it already has been. So it really doesn't change the way that I feel about it, just because I'm a fan of those particular properties. Anyway, I'm not really here to sort of rehash that whole debate, so I'll sort of leave it at that. If you're an Addison Rae fan and maybe you stumbled upon my channel here in this video, I want to welcome you into the game. I think it's a lot of fun. It's very deep in terms of the gameplay, especially when you kind of compare it against other mobile games out there. Now, I am excited to have Addison Rae finally as a playable unit within the game and actually see what she can do, and start theory crafting and putting together different teams with her. So, with that said, I'm going to give you my sort of first take and first impressions here, with the data that is now available to us today. So with that said, let's get started. So Addison Rae is going to be joining War of the Visions as a 100 cost light magical attacker, and she's going to be part of the gloved weapon class. She has a base 3-1 movement, and she can wear hats and cloth. Now, I don't have all of my usual graphics prepared here today. Obviously, Addison is brand new to the game, so I haven't really had all that preparation time to sort of, mock all those up. But I did get my main infographic here done, which will kind of cover most of the key attributes here for her. Now, starting with the TMR, it's actually very similar to one that we did just look at here on the channel, which was Bart's TMR. The main draw here is that it's going to add an innate haste dispel onto your attacks. So I did think that was very good with Bart's TMR, and it's going to be very good here as well. And in fact, I do actually like this one even better. For one, it's an accessory, which makes it much more flexible, not only in who can equip it, but also what you can equip it with. And not only that, but it does have the diamond targeting radius here, which makes it a lot easier and more flexible to buff with it there as well. Now, moving on and looking at Addison's stats here next, definitely a couple of nice highlights here. Very strong HP values for both base and innate, especially when you compare them amongst some of her brethren in terms of magical-based damage dealers. She is coming in well above the UR average there. She does even have an HP passive that you can equip in addition to that, and that can bring it up even further for her. Now, in terms of the magic value, Addison is setting a new bar for War of the Visions here, coming in at 422 base magic. That is going to put her a couple higher than the previous record holder in this category, which was Dark Fina. Now, the dex and agility values here for Addison, not too shabby either. She's going to be coming in just above the average in terms of her innate agility, and then she can get even higher via passive that she has access to as well. Now, aside from that, it's not really looking quite as good here, guys. Unfortunately, her luck in particular is amongst some of the worst in the entire game at just 156 base value. That, of course, is going to have a huge impact on the accuracy of this unit, but not only that, her evade and crit evade totals as well. And they're all going to be coming in well below the UR averages. Now, accuracy is something that I do tend to focus on here on the channel, but with just 154 innate accuracy, she's really in a position that she will potentially even miss just moderately evasive units that really haven't focused on their evade, all that much at all. So this is definitely something that you need to be cognizant of, when you are building this unit. It is probably one of her biggest weaknesses. Now let's take a look at the mitigation values here next. She's going to be coming in with 0 defense and 4 spirits, nothing crazy there. For resistances, we're going to have 30% against slash, and then 15% to both magic or missile typed damage. So, those all three are very solid. On the other hand here, though, we are going to have 2 notable weaknesses here, which is something that we haven't actually seen in quite a while. She's going to be coming in at -10 here to both pierce and strike damage types. So that is certainly another point here to be concerned of and aware of, if you are kind of matching up against units that do carry those damage types. And certainly strike damage in particular, it's very relevant right now. We did just get a couple of very powerful strike units with the Full Metal Alchemist collaboration. Now for the ailment resistances here, we're looking at 50% to paralyze and stop, and then 10% against poison. Paralyze, it's not really super relevant right now. It will be a little bit more relevant in the future when the new version of Alaya comes into the game. I do love the stop resist though. That has traditionally been one of the better ones to have, and it's a good one to have right now as well. Now for her mastery ability, she's going to be getting some additional HP, which I did factor into those totals that we looked at. She is also getting a -5 in her starting hate value, which, you know, we don't traditionally see a ton of characters get access to that, so that can certainly be very strong in certain situations for autoplay. Now, when you do take Addison all the way up to level 140, she is going to be getting a little bit more damage there with the 15 magical attack bonus, and then that 10% slash resistance there as well, which I did factor into that 30% value that we looked at. Now, on top of those two things, she is getting an upgrade to her Job 25 ability. It's called Soul Regram. It is going to be a pretty significant upgrade for that ability, and we'll look at that here in just a moment. So we're going to jump on over to WoTVCalc.com here, and we're going to take a deeper look at Addison's skills and abilities here next. Let's start with the passive abilities. I think that the main one here that you're going to want to look at is called Gracious Groove. It does get an EX upgrade when you take her to level 115, and then it's going to become Cosmetic Magi. That's going to give her a 24% magic, 40 spirit pen, as well as 40% magic res penetration. It's a really, really nice passive. It's probably the best one that she has. It's going to be competitive with some of the top units that we have seen come in as of late. She does get a few other nice ones here that you can pair with that though, especially from the Blade Soul subjob. I do like both of those. Mind Body Unity and Blade Soul Lore. I think in most cases I would probably go with Blade Soul Lore, you know, just for that agility bonus that it brings. But it is certainly nice to have the flexibility there that you can build her up with some additional HP, defense, or spirit, whichever you might need, you know, for the fights at hand. Now for a counter ability, she is going to be getting access to Reflex, which is sort of the original overpowered counter in the game. Her version is going to be called Switch Step. Of course, Reflex, not nearly as good these days as it once was. Still, it's a very nice one to have, and I think that that's probably the one that I'm going to be using on her in most cases. Now moving down into the core abilities here, we're going to start with the attacks here first. Her low AP skill here is called Chilled Out. It's a very short range on this one, just a range of 2. Nice utility on this one though. It does Dispel Courage before the damage comes in, so that one is pretty good. You know, there have been a lot of units coming in as of late that do rely on that courage mechanic. Now the next attack here is going to be called Rhythmic Fake. It's got a range of 4 with a range height of 1. It's going to come in with that medium 165 mod. This one is a 2-hit chaining attack, and prior to the damage it's going to have that 30 spirit break applied, so should be doing very nice damage on this attack, especially against low spirit units. Now her third attack here, it's going to be again just a single target ability. This one is called Breakthrough. It does get an EX upgrade when you take her to level 107, and then it changes up to Go Viral. This one's going to be another range 4 with a range height of 1, this time coming in with that large 200% modifier. This one will break magic barriers prior to hitting, and then it is going to be a guaranteed hit attack there as well. So very nice skill here on this one. Having access to that barrier break utility is essential in the game these days. Guaranteed hit, not as nice as it once was, just due to the presence of the Nourish Shill hit utility that's been added into the game, but you know, definitely still a nice feather in the cap. Those buffs definitely don't last forever. Now the final attack here is going to be called Sorceress Shuffle. It's got a large diamond AoE here up to a range of 5, coming in with that medium 165 damage mod. It does have some effects here post damage. It's going to decrease the area resistance of your targets by 30. And basically how I'm reading this one here is that assuming that debuff isn't blocked by general debuff resistance, the skill is going to have 2 additional effects applied, which is a reduction of 40% attack and 40% magic against your targets. Now this is the only area of effect attack that Addison Rae has here in their main job, but I do think it is a very solid one. That area resistant peril in particular is going to be super nice for anyone following up on her attacks, going to allow them to do much more damage than they could before. Now one nice thing that you might notice here across these skills is that they are all instant castable, so no cast time whatsoever here for Addison Rae. That's certainly a boon. On the other hand, they are all reflectable, but that is pretty common for most magic damage dealers there in the game that to have to deal with that. Now Addison does have 2 party buffs here that we'll look at next. The first one is going to be called Barrier Bop. This one actually very similar to Joker's buff. It's going to give Protect to both yourself and your allies, and then it's going to give Addison a 50% 3-hit physical barrier. Again, these effects not quite as strong as they used to be. Still though, it's nice to have, and especially having the combination and that layered mitigation that it can potentially provide. Now the next buff here, it's going to be a true highlight here for Addison's entire kit. It could very well be one of the best buffs that we've seen come into the game in the history of the game, you know, being honest. This one's called Soul Regram. It's going to allow you to give courage to either yourself or to your allies. On top of that, it's going to supply an auto heal back ability, which will trigger when you hit a threshold of 20% HP or lower. So that there already, that's an incredible buff. As we said earlier though, this one does get an upgrade when you do take her up to level 140, and it's going to add a sure hit nullification status onto the buff, and then it is going to give her a second cast of it there as well. So 3 very nice effects coming in here on just a single skill. Of course, there is individually, counterplay to each and every one of these in the game today, but the chances that your enemy is going to have access to all 3 of the counters there, might be a little bit more slim. So I think considering that, you're almost always going to be getting, some value out of the skill, no matter what the situation is. So I do think this buff is insane. It's going to be great for bruisers. It's great for tanks. It's great for evade units. It's really great for anyone out there, to be honest. I think it's going to be a game-changing ability, and I do think it's going to immediately vault Addison into the meta conversation simply because of how much better that she can make, the units beside her with this one buff. Now we're going to talk a little bit about the sub-jobs here next. I'm not going to go too deep into them. In terms of her main job, sub-job here, she gets 2 additional skills. The first one here is going to be a TP-based disable skill that does have a cross area of effect here. And if you do manage to land that disable, it's going to drop the evade of the units by 50 as well as the spirit by 40. Now the first effect there doesn't quite make sense to me. If you are disabled in War of the Visions, your evade is completely nullified. It goes to 0, so you're easily hittable by any unit in the game. So really that portion of the debuff isn't doing anything. So I think that's maybe a case where the developers there might have overlooked that. The second skill here though, it's a short range CT break with a medium damage modifier. This one's fine, nothing crazy here. I think though that in most cases you're going to be wanting to get access to the additional skills that are going to be coming in the sub jobs. She does get access to both Blade Soul and Red Mage, both pretty good jobs. Blade Soul is going to give her access to some magical slashing damage, so kind of diversify her damage types a little bit, and that's certainly going to let her fit in well with some of the other light units out there like Elena and some of the other light slashers. There is some nice utility coming in on the Blade Soul attacks there as well, though most of them do kind of require you to crit in order to actually gain the benefit. Now Addison's innate crit opportunity is more along the average, in terms of UR units, so if you are looking to take advantage of these skills, you would really need to dedicate a lot of resources into building up her dexterity and her crit rate in order to really gain a full benefit of those. Now unfortunately she doesn't get access to the magic barrier, which I think is one of the best skills from Blade Soul, so I really would have liked to have seen that one here for Addison. Now in terms of Red Mage, the highlight skill that she's going to get access here is going to be Jamming Thrust. That's a potent range 5 attack. It's got a large 200% modifier. It's always been a great skill. It's still great here today. Aside from that, you might be looking at maybe the curative potential you can get here with this job coming from Cura. Addison though, she doesn't have any innate healing power, so it's not something you're going to be able to rely on to get you a ton of healing. Certainly, better than nothing though. Unfortunately, she doesn't get access to the fast cast skill, which is the Red Mage haste spell that recently got upgraded. I think that certainly would have made this job a lot more compelling, and I do wish that she had that one. Now, last but not least, we do have Addison's Limit Burst. This one's called Live and Loving It. We did see the details of this one in the live stream as well as the animation there. This one is going to be a very strong Limit Burst. It does give her access to another Diamond Area of Effect skill here, topping out at that range of 5. This one's going to be a 3-hit chaining attack, and it has a very large chance here to slow your enemies. So we did see something similar last year with Summer Jaden and his Limit Burst with that AoE slow effect. We have never seen it before on this large of an area effect in that large diamond pattern. So the possibility is here that Addison can come in and slow your entire team with this Limit Burst and certainly turn the tide of the battle, or maybe even win it there outright. Very, very strong Limit Burst here. Now, personally, I did find the LB animation to be pretty funny on this one with the sort of the live comments and reactions, something that probably wouldn't feel out of place even in like a Persona game. Now, there is a new vision card that has come along with Addison as well. This one is called A Dance That's Out of This World. This one is going to be another one of the weapon-based vision cards. This one's going to be effective for gloves, which is Addison's group, books, daggers, and then sword group A, which is otherwise known as the Red Mage sword group. So it is a pretty eclectic job combination here. The party effects on this one, it's going to give 24% magic resistance, 40% magic, and then 40% reaction block. Now, specifically, if Addison is wearing the card, she does get access to 10 area resist, which is definitely a nice perk. So, I like this card fine enough. I think, if I was going for Addison, or, maybe if I invested in some of these recent glove units like Kefka or Roy, this is one that could work pretty well as a secondary card for you. It does have the bonus of having a vision ability tied into the card as well, which that's a pretty nice skill. It's got an extra large modifier on it of 240%. That does do a reaction cancel there as well. So definitely a pretty decent card at the end of the day. Now, we did mention that Addison is going to be joining that glove weapon group. So here's what that group looks like today. It is a group that's gotten quite a lot of attention with 7 cards in global here today, with another 2 that are going to be coming, in the near future. Not a ton of units that are populating this group as of now, although, we did get a few recent ones, as we mentioned, Kefka and Roy, and now we have Addison here. Now, unfortunately, today, Addison, she doesn't have another light unit that you might be able to pair along with her and sort of double up and get that mono light synergy as well as, the glove-based synergy, but, maybe something that we could look out for in the future. Now, as I have mentioned before, there is no tank specifically within this weapon group, but, the cards are starting to add up, in terms of the ones that they share with Sword Group A or that Red Mage group. And there are a couple of decent tanks in there, specifically Dwayne is probably the most compelling choice. And of course, if you do have access to Dark Bahamut, I think suddenly you start seeing some nice synergy there, between those 2 units. And certainly Dwayne having access to an innate heal back and courage does make him a lot scarier of a tank in my view. So what is my verdict today on Addison Rae? Well, it's all going to start with Soul Regram, that insane buff that we talked about. It's going to be an absolute game changer. She's going to be able to breathe new life into units that don't have those innate survival mechanics of their own, or simply just add on to a unit's existing survival mechanics and make them that much harder to kill. So I think that really allows for some creativity, in terms of what you can do with team building with this unit. Now, certainly that ability is going to be the cream of the crop, in terms of what Addison has to offer, but she's not going to be a one-trick pony by any means. She's got very high magic and HP, as we talked about. She can also get up to an 80% passive spirit penetration, which can be very strong against some units. She does have access to a couple of different imperils there with the area resist and spirit breaks. And then that limit burst is definitely another big highlight for her, where, if she's able to land that on a couple of different units, that can be a game winner in of itself. Now, on the more negative side, the real elephant in the room for this unit is going to be her innate accuracy. She is amongst the bottom tier, when it comes to accuracy in War of the Visions. It's going to be extremely difficult to reconcile that, as she doesn't really have any buffs or passives that you can really use to amp that up any further. Now, the one saving grace there is that she does have access to that guaranteed hit ability that we looked at, and it is actually a pretty nice ability. However, those skills in the current meta of the game have definitely been devalued with the presence of sure hit nullification. And I would say even more so now with Addison's introduction into the game, in that, she's able to give that sure hit null to any unit out there on the battlefield. Now, on top of that, when it comes to her survivability, she's completely lacking when it comes to both unit resist and area resist, meaning that if you're able to get in and sort of dispel some of the statuses that she's applied, she's going to go down relatively easily at that point. I will say, though, that Addison having, such a plethora of different statuses that she can apply onto herself, you think about that barrier, the protect, the courage, the heal back, it's definitely going to make that task a little bit more tricky. I do think that this is also going to be a unit that could be running into some AP issues from time to time, especially when you look at multi-round PvP like Guild War, as she's one of the magic units that does start with just 50% of her AP pool at the beginning of battle. And as we saw in the kit, she doesn't have any AP management buffs or skills that she can take advantage of to sort of extend that out. Now, my last concern is going to be that she does have 2 damage weaknesses in both Pierce and Strike, 2 damage types that have been getting some focus and attention as of late, and will actually be getting even more so kind of going into the future. Now, I'm about the furthest thing from a hype man, when it comes to this game. I do really try to be fair and balanced and try to tell things as they are to the best of my ability as I see them, and I really don't like to speak in any sort of hyperbole. But, that Soul Regram ability alone, it's absolutely disgusting. It's going to change the game. It's going to change the meta. That's how good it is. And similar to what I said about Bartz and his unique ability that he has when we looked at him, savvy players out there, they're going to be able to get a ton of value out of it and that skill, and sort of finding the interesting combination and units that you're going to really be able to amp up their power by giving that and bestowing that onto them. Personally, for me, I do think that is actually kind of exciting. At this point, the top of the meta has gotten a little bit stale and predictable with some of the units that are kind of sitting there at the top. And like I said, guys, that is just one ability there that we're talking about. She does have a lot of nice other things that she can do as well. So while there are certainly some clear weaknesses here with Addison, especially that accuracy is probably chief amongst them. So while there are certainly some clear weaknesses here with Addison that we talked about, certainly that accuracy issue is probably chief amongst them. I think that the good here far outweighs the bad, and she's going to be well worth that 100 cost tag here in War of the Visions. So there it is, guys. That is going to be my first look here today into Addison Rae in WoTV. And I do say first look because, none of us at this point have a full grasp of what we're going to be able to do with her yet in the game. So certainly there is more to come from me on this topic. I didn't include my normal mock build for that same reason. I want to be able to get in there and use her and see exactly what she can do. There is also the prospect that this event is coming across multiple story events here across multiple weeks. So there is a very good chance that we are going to be looking at new equipment for Addison Rae that may carry some unique passives that could actually make her even better within the game. So now I'm going to turn it over to you guys. Share your thoughts and opinions on Addison. Do you agree with my assessments here today, or do you disagree? Let me know what you think about this collaboration as well. For my veterans out there, let's keep it positive. Let's leave the toxicity at the door, keep it constructive. But on top of that, let's help out the new players out there that might be coming in that are those Addison fans. This is definitely a very complex game, and those first days on your account can be very overwhelming. So with that said, if you did enjoy the video today, hit that like button for me. It really helps me out with the YouTube algorithm. And if you like what I'm doing here on the channel, hit that subscribe button if you want to see more. And that's really all that I have to say for today. So as always, stay safe out there, and I'll see you guys in the next one.